We have the black pieces, which means definitely an e6, d5. Okay, first time we see the move e5. Probably won't be the last. But yeah, in terms of setting things up here, you know, it's quite difficult. One thing that I guess makes some sense is putting the bishop here. It's probably the only thing that makes sense because it's blocked there. So we can do that, but there's not much else we can do. Right? There's no knight here, there's no bishop here, so I wouldn't say that this is the most natural. However, we're going to try to find a place for all of our pieces. So if this knight can't go here, it has to go here. Well, then this bishop, where does the bishop go? Okay, he plays bishop g5. I should bring my knight here. So my setup is like a6. He happens to take, but regardless, I would have played knight here, pawn up, and then this knight on e7, I was going to bring it there. That way, every one of my pieces gets a nice spot. So we'll try this. This knight can actually go to c6 now. Originally, like I said, I was going to put it here because the other knight would need to go there. But in this case, that's not exactly forced. I'm going to castle. I know this queen is going to go here regardless. So it'll enable me to wait with the knight and hopefully pick the right spot. Okay. Queen d2. Definitely looking like knight c6 makes the most sense. And if takes, I think we want to do that. We should be able to win a pawn here, just because the knight will leave the defense of the e5 pawn to recapture. Yeah, so I think we can take. A little bit like apprehensive, you know, maybe queen there. It looks like it should work out, just barely though. Because yeah, queen here, bishop d6. I don't know about knight b5. Can work in some variations, but regardless, I think we should be fine here. We have bishop f6 in the worst case, and also I do think bishop d6 works because we have an a2 pawn hanging at the end. Queen e3 is definitely going to get me going knight c4. I wonder if knight e6 is good here. Definitely. Oh, well, if my knight was just on that square, that always means you can't go there. It's going to be unfortunate for him. Yeah, knight e6 looked like a pretty reasonable move at that point. Just go back. Yeah, we're just seeing a lot of like major material being hung. So you just, like I said, have to have your wits about you and just take it when it's offered. Try not to be the one that's blundering it. We can take this one. Making a threat here. That knight should probably move, but yeah, that's a lot of material to lose. He is going to resign that one. I think that makes sense. We're not going to see this move too often, but when we do, I think a6, c5, knight here. This knight I actually want to bring to c6. So maybe had he played something a bit different, maybe this is how it would look with the knight coming here. Bishop going to just e7, queen c7, castle, tons of pressure on the center. Yeah, because I'd have two knights hitting the center. I would have the queen, the pawn. That's quite a lot of pressure. All right. We're going to play d4, of course. Wait and see the response. We get d5, which is definitely very standard response. And again, almost the guarantee move is this. Now I might change my move order later, but I wonder if is it smarter at all to go like this, just as a move order thing, especially at these lower elos. I'm kind of wondering if there's any logic in that. So maybe knight to b4, a3. Try that. Ooh, okay. I think I see a lot of low elo players do this. A square gets taken away from them, and then their first thought is they'll put another thing on that square so that you have no option, like your family's held hostage, you have to capture, and then their piece can access that square. It's interesting, because I've never really thought about that as an option, but it's like a guarantee. This is a move I see very often. As soon as you deprive someone of a square, their first thought is like take another one of their pieces and put it there so that you'll take it, and then they'll have access to it. It's genius when you, like, in a way, it's kind of genius because it's showing a pretty good thought process, but there's also definitely some flaws in that logic as well. So hopefully bishop back to d7 is played, which, I mean, if you're looking at this knight and how to defend it, truly I think this presents itself as one of the only options, but he's not going to find it, and that could really cost him here, especially if he moves his king. Yeah, this will just be nothing but pain. Yeah, he's out of there. Well, yeah, you can't play moves like that. b5, b4 is definitely going to be no good. As you can see, at like 400, 500, I'm kind of experimenting, but you'll see I'm experimenting within the parameters of still making all the exact same moves. So just trying to find like the best move order against this particular rating range. It seems like I'm getting a lot of early bishop out, and it's making me think, okay, early bishop b2 could be smart. And I'm just trying to figure out what's ideal here. We haven't had that real like thumper of a game where we really get to see and appreciate the opening, but mainly because our opponents have just been blundering so far. So don't give up on it this early. We've been getting some nice wins, mainly due to hanging pieces, and hopefully we're starting to learn what the system looks like, so that when we actually need to execute it properly against a little bit of a higher rated opponent, we'll be able to. So even though you feel like you're not really getting reps in right now, you should be internalizing the system, the setup, where the pieces go, the patterns. That's important. Okay, we're gonna play d4, and I think, yeah, this is probably going to be a position where we don't oh, okay, never mind. I was gonna say where we don't get our knight to e5, but let's see here. Put our bishop there. Knight on b1 is gonna go to d2, of course. This is like the standard setup. We have to remember moves like c5, they just can't be touched, but that shouldn't be hard for you to remember because that never happens, right? We never really want to take that if we can avoid it. So we'll see what happens here. Okay, so yeah, this is, I guess, a pretty good example of I can't really take that. What I will do against this b pawn is I think I will play a4. There's a reason for that. If the pawn goes to b4, which I definitely expect, then first of all, knight can't go there. So if a3 was stopping knight b4, a4 also kind of stops it as well. And I was also mildly concerned about d5 plus the b pawn. Then c4 becomes really annoying. All of our pieces kind of get shut down a little bit. So I kind of like a4 because of that. Now we need to continue though. What do we have here? There's a bit of a pin opening up there. I might just hold the position for now, but kind of hoping that things clarify. Okay, it goes in with the knight. Yeah, now he might... Yeah, I think this could end up being decent for us. Knight c3, I think we can take it, and then it actually shuts the bishop down. I am defending this bishop, so perhaps we're threatening to take. Yeah, he does go there. I think it makes sense to capture this one. Maybe take here. Bit of a different... yeah, bit of a different position than last time. But anytime someone fianchettos, most of the time they play d6, so we don't even have knight e5 as an option. Here was a little bit different. Black played e6. I actually think d6 would have set my opponent up a little bit better than this move has. But one thing I do like in this opening is b5. In general, a4 is a decent reaction because you're threatening the pawn immediately, so black can't just like sit there. And then you've also got the rook ready to hit the a8 rook as well. a5. This looks like maybe a nothing move, but I think there's actually a ton of logic to that one. b4 supports this pawn, so I like it. I like it. I think I'm going to play bishop e4. Okay. Maybe we can take this one, go for a trade, and then the only way to attack this pawn is bishop there. I think we can survive this. We have that extra pawn, and although it's like two bishops against two knights, it's a very closed position overall. This bishop is pretty good, but it's also blocked by its own pawn, so. This move makes a lot of sense. We can play rook d8. Obviously, black will play bishop there. I think that's probably the way to do things. Yeah, we could move these pieces. Rook d8 makes sense, so I guess we just do it in the best order. Yeah, unfortunate that we didn't really get... Oh, okay, bishop there. Should be good for us. Yeah, we'll take this. And I think rook d8, the bishop kind of escapes here, so... Yeah, I think we want to play rook d7 and trap the bishop like this. With rook a7 next, then if the bishop takes, it does stop rook a7, but it blunders the bishop to a fork. So yeah, that bishop is quite a bad piece. And now up a rook, we should be able to convert this. I think rook c4 looks pretty good here. Could probably pre-move that. And now we can get our pawns moving, like, you know, b4, a5, like this. Probably don't want to pre-move it in case he takes. Then he could just finesse both of our pawns. And yeah. Okay, we'll take that. GG. Didn't play badly at all. I was expecting d6. The setup that we're going for, at least, is very standard. Yeah, a4 seems to make sense. Look, if I played maybe rook here, I might look at d5. And it's just that d5, we never really want to take here. In this case, we can't take it. So, good reminder. This basically doesn't exist, or it's not a move we generally like to do. In some cases, I'll play it, especially if it's the only option to prevent c4. But it doesn't feel great to have c4 happen all the time, even though your bishop can retreat. Sometimes they play queen here, and like even c4, c3 is a problem. So just this b5 move, I do like to consider a4 because at least b4, as I said, takes the square away from the knight and means that c4 is not going to happen anymore. But again, we're playing 500s here, just trying to get familiar with the setup, and here we were still able to get our setup out there pretty nicely. All right, once again with pawn up to d4. Okay, and yeah, we do see d6 here. This is a bit more standard, especially for some sort of fianchetto setup. This is going to make a lot of sense here. Now, you can imagine, because this move is going to happen to us here, we're going to have limited responses, right? Like, this move is just exactly what we don't want to see, because how am I going to put my knight in here? How am I going to do like f4 to follow? Like, I'm just not really able to do any of that against a setup like this. So we can still put our pieces out there on normal squares, but definitely the move e5 is going to it's going to be a problem to handle. Okay. Good thing about someone that fianchettos is you can always win their bishop if they go and pin you. So we'll go ahead and do that. He does play e5. Again, we have limited responses here. I think that we might be able to take it, but I can see a few good responses for him. So I'm more in the e4 camp here. Brings the knight into the middle. Yeah, probably want to just take this one and get ourselves castled. And maybe we still have some decent kingside aspirations here. Goes like that. I'm definitely interested in f4. I mean, the whole system we're playing is pretty aggressive. This is also an option, but yeah, I'll go for just f4. Queen f3, rook d1. That looks too aggressive, but let's see. We see that he wants to play maybe bishop to e3. I'm going to start with this. Very risky because it allows his knight into e3, but it also allows my queen out to h5, and I'm hoping that this is just going to be worth it. King g7, almost the only move. It looks very scary in terms of what it walks into, and yeah, our opponent plays knight takes f4. I think queen takes h6 is almost the end of the game, but even better, I think, than queen takes h6 might be just rook takes f4, just because our attack is so strong here. And yeah, I was actually going to take this bishop here, but I'm starting to think that queen f5 might just be the better move. Obviously, I hope we're not trolling here, but I think queen f5 is maybe better. It makes almost no sense. How could this move be better than taking a free piece? But just the power of this this diagonal seems to be unmatched. I can only see rook e8 and trying to escape the king this way, but if we just throw in our bishop a3, we should have a checkmate in a couple of moves. Because think about it, this is mate, and there's no way to do anything about this diagonal for him. So if you imagine this, where can the king go? I mean, that's like the only option, playing king here. So I can only see rook e8 as a possibility. Yeah, and then, you know, great advice when looking to checkmate someone. I'm going to take here. I have a hanging bishop. I even have a check, but there's going to be nothing more powerful than actually delivering this check. It's the bishop on a3 that takes away this square. And even though my opponent can play rook here, now the rook's taken that square. So the point is the king won't be able to escape, and we'll be able to deliver a mate here in a couple of moves, if not one move. GG. So we're able to get a pretty nice attacking game there still. you know, it might not be your standard one, but it's a good proof of concept that even against an opening where you'd expect no attack to happen, yeah, it's still possible. It's really all about mobilizing your F pawn, getting your queen out to F3, rook over, and in this case, the guy was playing it for me because he played G5. This is the type of game that I want. This is what the system is all about. Look at all three of my pieces, plus the F pawn, plus the rook getting involved. And Queen F5 is just, yeah, this is really, really uncomfortable there. Queen takes H6 also threatened checkmate on H7, yes. But unfortunately, my opponent can play F5 here, and the material is really 2 pieces for a rook, which is, I know I'm better there. Of course I'm crushing here, but it's not quite winning. Not the same way. So, yeah, for example, let's see. Okay, yeah, so queen takes H6 is +7, so crushing. Crushing. If you play queen takes H6 here, you know, round of applause. It's a fantastic move. Queen F5 is forced checkmate in 9. So there is a difference, but obviously I wouldn't be upset if anyone played queen takes H6 instead. All right, John. Well, at least we're happier to see D4 compared to E4, that's for sure. And yeah, on this move, we can't get tempted into taking. Let's see if we can set things up. Ooh, F3 in order to play pawn to E4 is definitely, I mean, that's kind of going to get me to do something different. My general rule is if you see the move F3, play C5. So it's just a guaranteed decent move because, yeah, their knight can't come to F3 anymore. So it just has to be good. It looks like we can take here and probably win a pawn. I wonder if this guy's really going to know enough to play D5 here, because otherwise I would say maybe taking a knight C6 makes sense. But let's play the most logical move, just because it uncovers an attack on D4. We can do this. I mean, technically, this makes good sense here. It's not completely winning or anything because there is queen E2 at the end. Definitely think it should be played though. It's got to be the queen though. There's definitely a lot of moves you could make an error here. That being one of them. And although we allow him to play pawn takes here, I think it's certainly not even close to what we're able to accomplish. Maybe a nice, okay, well, nice piece for us. That definitely works as well. Yeah, I think maybe queen takes here might be the good one to play. Just because I can see the world where king c2 happens, and then on top of everything being good here, I think we actually win the queen, so this will be even better. I've been thinking, like, is there a way to do even better than that here, like find a mate, but I don't think there's a mate right away. I think this should be it. And well, everyone wants to move the bishop to make a threat, but it's actually pinned. And on top of that, we're threatening a couple checkmates in one. GG. Yeah, not quite our system, but look, f3 is a move that should probably be punished every time by c5. You're just not really equipped to deal with this pawn anymore. Your knight's not there, your pawn's not there. You're very, very slow. If you don't challenge the center, they play e4 and just kind of take it over. Same principle as when people play the Alpine Sicilian with c3. The plan is c3 and d4, and so what should you do? Hit the pawn in the center because it can't be supported by the knight. Same here. They're playing this to play that. hit the pawn in the center because it can't be defended by the knight. It's just a generally accepted practice. All right. We'll go with d4, knight to f3. And again, seeing this one quite a bit. I'm still not sure what the appropriate move order is against the 4/500s of the world, but I'm going to try this one. I really wanted to pick one that allowed me to control e5 a little bit better. Yeah, and I'm definitely not going to take that. Let's castle. You will probably see after one of these moves that I play knight into e5. I think that's probably important here. Let's play knight d2. Okay, queen here. Well, I think we finally got there. We've found an opponent that has been, resilient enough that e5 is going to happen, and the character of the position has changed so much that I think, yeah, without our bishop on d3 anymore, I think it's a c4 kind of moment. I wonder if this one makes sense, right? If you go here, the knight's gonna be able to slip into the e5 square, but if we go here and then we go here, that can't really happen. So yeah, d5, I think tactically was just enough to win there. We've got a couple threats here. Let's take this. Knight here, we can get a lot of trades in. He's going to resign. Unfortunate. He fell for one tactic, and that was just the end of the game. Still trying to find what the correct move order against 4/500 is. I've been experimenting with this one. It all kind of gets us to the same spot. So, you still see every single move that we go for is identical, just in a different order. But yeah, if the bishop's not there anymore, it does make more sense to play c4. But if I got my bishop on the board and we're thriving, then we can go for the more standard never play c4 position and put the knight in on e5. And yeah, if we didn't play c4 there, the guy was maybe going to play e5. So kind of had to. I think it made sense. And yeah, I've been going for a few other positions like with e3, bishop g4, been trying these. Again, a lot of these bishop g4 positions with the knight on c6 are not good because of c4. So that's why I can tell you, you're not going to see anyone really playing this once you leave maybe 600-700 ELO, I want to say. So for now, we're mainly capitalizing on hanging pieces, I feel, which is all right. Keeping in mind to prevent e5 when we can, and trying to get the knight into e5. Okay, we got the white pieces. Let's go d4, and most certainly the move e5 will categorically not allow you to play this, but we can definitely take. Oh, I was going to say, our guy doesn't really seem to have a plan after we took, which is a little bit strange. Okay, as soon as I saw e5, I said, okay, we might be in for something here. But he could come out with all the tricks in the book, but then he played f6, which is not a fantastic follow-up. Yeah, I feel like he was kind of hoping maybe for like e4, e5, and against d4 he was like, meh, I'll just, you know, do it anyway. So yeah, this is this is probably not the position he wants. All right, let's take the material. Yes, we lose our center pawn, but I think we can all understand that losing the center pawn is not the worst of it for us here. We could be doing a lot worse. Bishop d3 looks fine. Knight e2 looks not fine. Bishop e2 I think I almost like the most, but bishop e3 takes. This is actually defended. So I would say bishop e3 is the move that I'm going to go for here. I wonder if we're going to see this. His knight is actually hanging, so... Oh, okay. He's going to go here. Yeah, I think we want to just take this. Queen takes c2. Okay, I think we're going back here. We could take this, but queen h8. I'm doing this because I'm really expecting to win his queen on b2. So he's just playing pretty well. But I feel like if knight f3 maybe happens, like after queen takes c2, that he would run into trouble there. But he's just doing such a good job getting the pieces developed and castling that I'm not that concerned if I'm him. So yeah, maybe we go here, try to prompt him to do it. Get our knight out quickly. I mean, that's a long way. Does he really see that? That's gotta clap our hands for that. Okay, I can only really give him one more opportunity. I mean, I'm definitely impressed though. .562. I mean, this guy's showing out right now, especially if we see something like bishop h6, you know, like just anything with some good understanding of maybe a tactical theme there. Knight c5. I mean, I'll castle again to just make him fully display it, but wow, this has been impressive. It really has. Knight d3. No, this guy fully understands that pawn is defended, so can only be impressed, honestly. All right, knight d3. It looks like knight d4 is a pretty strong idea here. I mean, this guy's good. This guy's good. He sees that this is defended, but doesn't see that that is attacked. The duality of 500s. Need to save our pieces here. I think I'm gonna finally remove myself from the line of fire there. This, I think, also cleverly starts to hit the c7 pawn for maybe like a rook c1 in the future, and he's gonna call it there. Even though he lost the game, I feel like I leave that game with a good impression of him, so he did well. And he most certainly did not really allow us to take a look at our setup very much, because hey, I mean, e5 is just never going to be something that makes sense to try to get your Zukertort set up with. Just take the pawn, go from there. All right, well, we have d4 here, which means we can play d5, and okay, this is definitely a more passive start, and our opponent is looking for that early. It is defended right now. Let's see if we can add another attacker early. And okay, interesting, bishop there. Okay, so our opponent's setup is probably not great here, but I see the the intention, right? To get e4 in. Let's see what he wants to do. If he plays the knight there, then might be slightly difficult. Yeah, he brings the bishop out. I still don't see him actually playing that just yet. So maybe we can go castle. Okay, rook here. I am looking at the move e5. Does make a lot of sense. Also knight bd7 and e5 then. Yeah, so he does go g4. Again, anytime that you see something like that, I feel it's like your cue to either take and play in the center or to just play in the center. So yeah, this move has a lot to it, but I think that if we react in the center, we should be set up pretty nicely. Anytime someone plays on the wing, that's what's recommended. You can, yeah, I think just take that. King f2, d4 should be a very decent follow-up, just with the rook being hit and also the queen coming in to recapture on d4 potentially. So yeah, he's going to drop the rook, but at least dodge our queen arriving into the center. What can we do here? Knight to e4 looks pretty good, especially because the bishop can recapture and kind of free itself from the h1 square. But yeah, just lots of material hanging and just knowing what to do when someone starts sending pawns up the side of the board. You just always send something right up the middle, open the position. It always works. I'm not saying you'll always know precisely how to follow up, but it will always be a good idea to start with that. Okay, let's finish our development here. The queen, probably the rook over. We're also hitting this knight, so rook takes h3 becomes more of an idea. Okay, knight needs to move. We can maybe do some stuff with this. For sure. Rook f3, queen g4. Yeah, I'm not exactly seeing the the checkmate. So let's play it nice and safe and just keep our extra piece. Don't need to do anything too wild. Wanna maybe double the rooks. Looks like this knight can go here as well. We can trade this. And I think just knight into f5, doubling the rooks, should lead to a win here. Rook e1 is a massive threat. Like rook f2, rook e1. Looks tough to defend. And we should have mate in a couple of moves here. Check. And checkmate. Yeah, we went for our system pretty decently there, like almost all the pieces, but hey, gotta adjust. People start sending pawns up the side of the board, right up the middle. I mean, just have a look at the final position, and you can just appreciate the skeleton. We see a pawn on g5, a pawn on b5, and we see a pawn on d4, and a missing e-pawn. And you see all my pawns back here, and you see all his pawns up here. So that just shows you what type of game we had. We had him pushing pawns here, and me pushing pawns here. And that's exactly why the final position looks like this. So I'm sure you could just look at the pawns in this position and immediately have an idea that black should be the one winning this game. Let's go for d4. See what black wants to do. And we see d6, which we've seen before. And this already tells us that, you know, we're not really going to get a position where our knight goes into e5. But every single time our opponents played this, they've also coupled it with the move e5. And I just don't understand it. Because all of a sudden, it's just, we get our knight into e5. Like, huh? I mean, this is not... Can't tell me this is difficult. I mean, yes, he might get a hold of our knight there. I'll probably go here just to at least threaten to have it escape. But if it's corralled, I mean, obviously he can take it. But we've won so much material here. I'm not planning to actually keep this knight. Like I've already done a pretty good job. Okay, we just need to get the rest of our pieces developed here. May as well take a pawn on our way out. And yeah, we have a rook for knight here, but we also have 3 pawns. So that's quite significant. Like that's worth a lot. It's worth a lot. Well, let's cover this square. We can't really cover this one as well, but we can long castle and everything should get defended here. Ooh. Walking into this is very bold, but my bishop didn't really have anywhere to go, so not something I think we could take advantage of right there. Let's start booting around these knights. We have 3 extra pawns, so we may as well mobilize them. Doesn't really make sense to play this position without using the pieces that we have. Or the advantages that we have, I should say. Mine being a ton of extra pawns. Like if we don't push them, it doesn't really feel like we're enjoying the edge they provide. Knight e8. The knight on e8 is 100% trapped. Okay, bishop's hitting the pawn. I don't mind safeguarding it here. Nice little, you know, in general, if he plays knight g7, I feel like he's unintentionally or intentionally maneuvering the pieces quite reasonably. So I certainly give him that. Let's move the king out of the way. Brings the knight up here. I think I will keep my bishop, which is really important. And any knight e3, we just play there. And unfortunately, the backwards knight moves are the worst ones to miss. I can say that because I myself have missed a backwards knight move in an earlier game. So those are the ones that just escape us. Let's get a escape square here. The knight will have to retreat to b6, which again is not the worst square for him. Okay, we can allow bishop takes here. It looks like it will lead to a decent amount of trades. Like here we can take this. Oh, okay. Well, it will definitely lead to a lot of trades this way. And yeah, we have an extra rook behind a pass pawn, so obviously, yeah, without thinking too much, I'm just gonna push. We could push this, we could take this, but yeah, I feel like pushing this pawn is so simple. That's all I want to do. Let me go all the way. We could try to take some squares here. I don't think we have a mate coming up, but we have the makings of a mate. Bring our king up and should be able to get a nice mate pretty soon. Cornelius, GG at the end. So far, maybe we've been fortunate, but every time we've been faced with like d6, which you'd think is kind of a problem. I don't know whether it's now, whether it's later in the game, everyone plays e5. They always do, and I don't know. Sometimes they blunder a pawn there, but it just feels like this move happens pretty often, and it's weird because it looks like a move that you shouldn't be able to play. Like, this is not good for many reasons. Allows that trade, and then, yeah, blundering f7 to top it off meant that the game was not that difficult to convert, so... GG, and we're up to 600. We take those. Yeah, 601. We've crested the 600 mark. As always with the earlier games, you really never get to see a specific setup that much because players have their own things that they play at 400, 500, 600 elo, but I would say maybe around 800, 900, you'll start to see players play with a bit more intention in the opening, and that's where this setup is really going to shine. But we managed to get to 600 without too much trouble. It's mainly an opening with white, as we've seen here, so the games with white are more interesting to pay attention to. But with black, you know, it's just basically taking free pieces as they're getting hung. But that's what 400 to 600 elo is all about. If you take free stuff and you don't hang free stuff, for the most part, you'll do well. Thank you for making it to the end of another episode of the Colle Zukertort speedrun. It's definitely one of the easiest attacking weapons to learn in chess, so I hope that this series is making it easier to understand. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already and turn on post notifications so you do not miss our next episode.